now because Aston Villa don't want to sell Ollie Watkins with John Duran on the verge of joining Al Nassr. And I think these reports that Arsenal made the bid came quite at a bad time as far as Villa were concerned, to put it mildly, just hours before their clash against Celtic last night. And it's safe to say that they weren't best pleased that those reports were coming out so close to a big game. Now, those talks between Villa and Arsenal, we understand, started while there was still a bit of uncertainty about whether John Duran was going to be staying at Aston Villa or leaving. Now, this is interesting what the Villa boss Unai Emery said after that game against Celtic when he was asked about Ollie Watkins. He said, "I don't want him to leave. It is good news to have offers from other clubs. We want to keep our sporting objective through the players we have in the squad." He says he wants to keep him, but he also says it's good news to have offers. And it would only be on Aston Villa's terms whether they would allow players to leave.
They'd never sell both.
Yes, but
they'd never do that.
Money talks.
Can't help me out. They're not selling both their strikers. They've got two great strikers. One's going. They're not going to sell the other one.
I think it's unlikely that they would sell both unless they had somebody else lined up. If they've got somebody else lined up, then I could see it happening, because they could. I'm just playing devil's advocate. They could say Ollie Watkins is 29. He's not getting any younger. It's now or never to bank a big transfer fee for him. So I get what you're saying. I know it's unlikely, but you could make an argument that bank the money from John Duran, bank the money from Ollie Watkins, and reinvest it in somebody else if they've got somebody else lined up. Me personally,
wanting that.
Yeah, me personally, I would keep Ollie Watkins because I think he's a fantastic player.
One interesting development in this, though, is that one source has told Sky Sports News that the chance to sign Watkins was actually proposed to Arsenal. Now, Arsenal actually value him around £40 million. The source claimed that £60 million was Aston Villa's valuation. And the feeling is any potential deal, if it was to happen, would require Villa to reduce their valuation. Look, a lot of people will say, why is this happening so late in the window? Because Arsenal probably needed a striker throughout this window. I think Arsenal's focus changed when the injury came about to Gabriel Jesus. And that there was a gap in valuation between what Arsenal were prepared to pay, what Villa wanted, around about 20 million, we think. We think Arsenal thought 40. We think Villa wanted about 60 million. So he didn't outright say Ollie Watkins is not for sale. I'm not saying he's inviting bids or anything, but it was just left that door open to me, because it's one of those times of the window where you say never say never. And with Ollie Watkins, if Arsenal and Villa have been in talks, they must have had some sort of encouragement, Arsenal, that maybe there's a deal to be done. Interestingly, one source told us earlier that the chance to sign Watkins was actually proposed to Arsenal. And as I mentioned before, they thought 40. Villa were thinking 60. And the feeling is that if any potential deal can be done, it would require Aston Villa to reduce that valuation. But clearly, as I said at the top, Villa don't want to lose Ollie Watkins and John Duran in the same transfer window.
Jamie, they can't lose their two number nines.
I don't see that happening. But what it's maybe done from a negotiational point of view is made Al Nassr spend a lot more money, because they're pretty well, we got to act quickly because they've made a bid, and one or the other was going to go. I don't see them both. Although obviously I heard you talking about money does talk, but I just feel that can't, that certainly can't happen. I felt that. I feel a little bit of sympathy for John at Aston Villa, because he's up against a top striker. It's very difficult to sort of get someone like Ollie Watkins out of the team. He scores, he assists, he's a very important player to them. And obviously everyone's going to have a view on him going, but it wouldn't be for me. I wouldn't have, at that age, wouldn't wanted to go. But I totally get it. If for him it was going to change his family's life, he's going to earn vast amounts of money in 3 or 4 years' time. He could always come back to the Premier League. It's very easy for people to judge on these situations and say he shouldn't do this, he shouldn't go to another league. But financially, he's going to secure not just his or all his family, from where he's from, and make their lives so much better. So it's very easy to judge in these situations. The money that we're probably talking, as you guys know, is astronomical.
Chief reporter money is.
Yeah, is that the chief?
Oh, yeah.
But it's a shame, because you just feel that there's so much that he can do in this league. But he's also, like you say, he's going to go and play with work with Ronaldo, and it's a big opportunity. If you'd have said to me last week this would be a possibility, I'd have said absolutely no chance. I could have maybe seen it at another club, maybe seen it at West Ham or even in Arsenal, but I didn't see him going there.
I wonder if this is Cristiano Ronaldo flexing his muscles a little bit,
because he big muscles.
Yeah, because he plays for Al Nassr, and Al Nassr are one of the top 4 clubs in Saudi Arabia. But they haven't been winning titles.
No.
You know, the titles have been going to Al Hilal, Al Ittihad. They're 3rd at the moment. They're 5 points behind the leaders. And I wonder if Cristiano Ronaldo, who's 40 next week, has just been saying to the owners of Al Nassr, look, come on, we've got to make some big signings. You've got to help me out because I want to win some more trophies before I retire, which is why they're going in for players like John Duran and also Mitoma at Brighton.
So certainly, and agents as well. The agents' fees are going to be so huge as well, and
tax-free.
Yeah, it's there's a couple of years out there. It's listen, playing the Premier League is life-changing. Let's not kid ourselves.
So where does all this leave Arsenal? Because Villa surely are going to hold on to Watkins tighter, and Arsenal interested, we think. So where's that leave them in a search for a striker?
Well, look, obviously, Mikel Arteta, I'm sure Arsenal fans, they've known for a long time they need a striker. I think we looked at, is it January the 14th that Jesus did his cruciate ligament?
Yeah, that's when it got announced he was going to be out for a while.
You've known it for a while, and if you were that keen on Ollie Watkins, or that was the man you wanted, you could have made a bid a little bit earlier. I think he's 30 years of age. You know, he's a very, very good player, but it just feels that they're almost going to get to the point now where they're going to miss getting a striker in this window, and they certainly need one.
One thing I would say though, I was speaking to you about this just before your parents' evening, and we're talking about exactly this. Why have Arsenal waited until now? Well, before Gabriel Jesus' injury, they were clearly looking at a certain type of striker. It might have been a short-term deal that they were looking at from abroad. When this injury happens and he's out for that length of time, Arsenal's tack changed slightly to, right, we might need a full replacement here, we might need to do a permanent deal here. So it's not just a case of, right, just go and get someone. They have to do their due diligence again, all over again. And it might have taken them a week and a half, 2 weeks to decide, right, these are the players that we want, these are the targets that we're going to go for. Ollie Watkins, at the moment, we're saying that Aston Villa do not want to sell. I haven't heard yet that he's not for sale. And it's always that you never say never at this stage of a transfer window. As much as we're saying they can't possibly sell both of them in the same transfer window, I'm wondering what happens if someone goes in with 60 or 65 or 70 million for Ollie Watkins for a 29-year-old. For a 29-year-old, what do Aston Villa do? Because for all we know, they might have something else lined up in the pipeline. Because they're willing to.
Let's ask Darmesh Carve that.
Just on Arsenal,
is Duran going to be replaced?
Yeah, I think he will be. But just on what Darmesh said about Arsenal, just to throw this out there, we know that Sesko is one of their top targets, the player they've been watching for ages. Last night, his side, RB Leipzig, dropped out of Europe, dropped out of the Champions League. We know RB Leipzig have been really, really active in the transfer market. Is there any chance that Arsenal could make that late move for Sesko? And he's like 8 or 9 years younger than Ollie Watkins.
They were effectively out of the Champions League even before last night. And the issue that RB Leipzig have got is, yes, people will say, right, they don't need him this season now because they're not in the Champions League. However, they want to get into next season's Champions League. He signed a new long-term contract, so they're under no pressure to sell Benjamin Sesko at the moment. For the information we have, he hasn't got a release clause in his contract anymore. So if they can keep Sesko and he scores the goals that gets him into the Champions League next season, they could do business with Sesko with another club in the summer, having guaranteed all of that money that they're going to get by being in the Champions League next season.